There's been one thing that the Xbox has over the PlayStation platform that no one can debate, and that's backwards compatibility. This feature was announced at E3 for Xbox, and it was one of the most sought after features by gamers. And for years, Xbox always said they will add more titles to their system that you can play from last generation. And as the years went on, Xbox doubled down with this notion of playing everything on their Xbox. They even brought up forward compatibility, which will allow people to play next generation games on any Xbox console or any PC you own, even your current Xbox One consoles. It's something that a lot of gamers have never seen before, and because of this, a lot of light was shined on Sony to see how they will respond. Well, this generation, the best form of back compat they could get was through PS Now, where you couldn't download PS3 games on your console, but you could stream them for a fee. But as the next generation draws closer, we see Sony being very open to the back compatibility with the PS5. But what do they have to say about the forward compatibility? Well, recently Jason Schreier was on a podcast and he spoke about certain PS5 launch titles only being available on the new console. So let's dive into this article and see what exactly is happening with the next generation PlayStation 5. But before we do that, if you liked the video, hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support is greatly appreciated. Alright, first of all, I want to say that this is all rumors and should be taken with a giant grain of salt, but it's coming from someone that has a lot of insider information. So as I mentioned before, Xbox has been almost firm about having Xbox Scarlet games being playable on their current gen consoles. It's something that a lot of gamers, including myself, find to be pretty awesome. Yet for Sony, they might not see the same thing everyone else sees. Instead, they might have exclusive PS5 content that will be locked down on the console instead of being playable on a PS4 or a PS4 Pro. In other words, if you want to play a certain new Sony first-party game, you will have to buy a new console in the PS5. Here's what was said. Some of Sony's upcoming PlayStation 5 launch games will be exclusive to the next-gen console, giving developers total freedom to push the PS5's beefy Zen 2 CPU and Navi GPU tech to their limits. Developer sources tell Kotaku's Jason Schreier that a portion of the PS5's first-party launch games won't be cross-gen and won't be playable on the PlayStation 4. I've heard some of the PS5 launch titles will be PS5 only. Some of the stuff I've heard about is PS5 only, Schreier said in a recent Kotaku split-screen podcast. There's a lot to unpack here, especially when the article says it's giving developers total freedom to push the PS5's beefy CPU and GPU. To me, this is very misleading because it's trying to imply that the developers won't be able to push the console if they optimized a game for the current gen consoles. That of course is false considering PC developers have been doing that for years. They always aim for the highest spec count they can and work their way down the line. It's how it works, and when a certain spec can't run the game, that's where they cut it off and tell people, hey, you can't play this game with this graphics card or this CPU. That's the first thing I wanted to clean up because it's weirdly worded. So let's get into the juicy stuff where Jason Schreier mentions that a couple of PS5 first-party launch games won't be cross-gen. To me, that's a little weird because I find the PS4 Pro to be more than capable to run a certain game that developers are making currently. And I may understand this notion maybe 2 or 3 years into a generation, but for launch first-party titles to be treated that way is a little weird to me. Because if we remember this generation, a lot of third-party games were able to run on both generations of consoles. And as time went on, the developers wanted to expand their games. They left the old hardware behind and concentrated on the current gen consoles. And that's mostly because developing on a PS3 and an Xbox 360 was drastically different from developing on an Xbox One and PS4. But what makes this even more weird is that Jason Schreier went to Twitter to backpedal his statement, but not to the extent we might think. He says this about third-party games, but still stands firm on the first-party games. Anyone can listen to Kotaku's split screen and hear the entirety of what I said, which is that I've heard about some third-party games that are cross-gen and a couple of first-party games that seem to be PS5 only. That's all. This to me sounds a little suspect because it sounds like he's reporting from two different sources. Of course, third-party developers would want to get their game on the largest install base possible, which would be this generation of consoles along with next generation of consoles. As for the first party, it almost seems irrational to make games for such a small install base and force other customers to buy a certain box, especially with how software has advanced. Which brings me to the x86 architecture. Developers have a very easy development cycle they can follow, so it's not hard for developers to make games for the PS5 and the PS4. The only reason I would see why they keep games off the PS4 is so they can push the hardware sales of the PS5, which isn't very customer friendly. Now, of course, this could all be rumor and they decide to release all of their first-party launch titles on the PS4 and the PS5, which would be awesome to see, but if we look at history, Sony does tend to have a very traditional look at things, even though lately they've really embraced streaming games on multiple devices and doubled down on cloud gaming. They did this because competition by Xbox and Google have opened that can of worms. And that's why I'm so surprised, because the competition, which is Xbox, is saying they will make games for all their platforms. And Jason Schreier basically confirms this when he says this: I haven't heard anything about Xbox first party games, but I'm sure their stuff is going to be on as much stuff as possible, as usual. Actually, they already said Halo Infinite is going to be cross-gen. They certainly care much less about exclusives. So if Xbox is making their games cross-gen so people that bought a new Xbox One X aren't left out, why isn't Sony doing the same thing? You see, I'm bringing this up because I love competition between multi-billion-dollar companies. I want them to try their hardest to earn my dollar. And for Sony to just lock exclusive games down on a box which would force me to buy a new machine kinda doesn't sit right to me. I understand over the history of gaming, people had to buy a new console in order to play a certain game. And for a little while that worked out for most companies, but at the end of the day, it wasn't great for us, the customers, because we had to buy multiple consoles at hundreds of dollars a pop. But as time went on and software and hardware advanced, that old tradition seemed outdated and anti-customer. So when I hear that Sony isn't going to bring launch first-party titles to their PS4 customers, it rubs me the wrong way. Because scaling for both consoles isn't the hardest thing to do, especially since people on PC have been doing it for years now. But like I said, maybe a competition would change their mindset, much like it did with streaming games on multiple devices. Having Xbox be so adamant about being cross-gen and allowing customers to play their games the way they want will bring Sony to try new things and ditch archaic ways of doing things. Because as a guy that has a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One X, it would be cool if I can give my buddy or a family member my PS4 Pro and they'll be able to play all the new games and enjoy the console, instead of forcing them to buy an entirely new console. Either way, let's hope competition goes in the gamers' favor this time around. But enough about what I think, tell me what you think about this. Do you like the idea of first-party launch titles only being on the PS5? Do you think Xbox has this right? Are you going to buy a PS5 day one because of this? Do you think PS4 Pro should have all of those new games? Does this open you up to the Xbox platform more? Is forward and backward compatibility important to you? Go down below and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support helps out the channel more than you know. And give me a follow on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my latest videos. And also follow me on Mixer. I recently started streaming on Mixer because I find the community much more engaging and fun. So if you want to hang out and chat with me, I'm very active with my chat and always playing games. The links will be in the description. I hope to see you guys there. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.